Okay, hello again, folks. This is Seth Wilkinson from the SealRyt Corporation, manufacturers of the PackRyt bearing and high-performance braided mechanical packing. Here for the Pump Seal channel to discuss flow systems. All right, what exactly is a flow system? Well, a flow system is a flow meter and a pressure gauge that you attach to your flush line going into your pump. Why is this important? Well, most mechanical packings require flush of some sort. All right. So whether you discharge it onto the ground or you actually push that flush water into the process, it's really important for you to have some type of measurement, some type of gauge to determine how much water is being put either into process or onto the floor and help you best regulate that water, because it all goes into the effluent system, which causes it has a high cost associated with it, or it goes into process where you may increase the dilution, where you may not really necessarily want it, and have had a lot of people come back at us saying, hey, we can't dilute our process, or we can dilute it to a certain point. So, all right, so how do you measure that? Well, quite simply, right here. This is a flow system, so we've hooked it up to our inlet, and it comes around into our flow meter, so that gives us our gallons per minute, and then it gives us our pressure reading of that flush water. Okay, so why again is this important? Because you want to be able to regulate mainly through your flow meter how many gallons per minute are either going into process or out into discharge and then into the effluent. Pressure, why this is important, is because you want to make sure that if you are going to be putting that water into process, that you are at least 1 bar or 15 psi over your process pressure or your head pressure, depending on what type of either pipe or vessel that you're actually using the pump or agitator on. It's very, very important that you understand these two elements when dealing with flush. On top of that, these two gauges right here will tell you a lot about what's going on inside that stuffing box when the water is on. So as my GPMs start to increase, I've done nothing to this pump. I've set it, I've set that packing to where I need it. I'm at that 1 drip a minute or no drip at all. I can then start to regulate and pay attention to how many gallons per minute are either going into process or out into atmosphere. Mainly if you're putting it into process, as soon as those GPMs start to increase, what's that telling you? That's telling you that your packing might be worn out, your PackRyt bearing might be starting to wear out, you might have some excessive cavitation, something that's going on inside of that pump, depending on at what point in the life that you put that packing in, whether it be 6 months to a year, you start seeing an increase in your GPMs. That's telling you that something's going on inside of there that's wearing out that mechanical packing or that bearing. Pressure. You may see fluctuations in pressure, and you're always going to see some little fluctuations. I don't care how good of a system that you have, you're going to see some variation in there. It's when you see a drop in that pressure. What's that tell you? That tells you that there is less restriction going into the stuffing box and you're getting more flow into process. All right, so just by using these two devices can really tell you a lot about what's going on inside of there. On top of that, as soon as that pressure decreases, if you're just at that 1 bar, just at that 15 psi over process, and you start dropping, you might see additional leakage coming out, because now you're going to start getting process into that stuffing box, which is the death knell, as we all know. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to turn this bad boy on so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So first things first, I always want to turn my flush water on every time, first time. This here is a 3-way valve. Crank it down. Our particular system, like I said, comes up into the flow meter, then over into your pressure gauge, and then out into your pump here. With this 3-way valve, if any one of these things becomes inoperative, I can actually isolate this system and run it through our bypass here, and I can turn off this valve, turn this valve this way. Now I've isolated this system. I'm still getting flush water into my stuffing box. The one thing I'm not doing though is I'm not going to get any readings here. So then at this point, then I can release the pressure inside of this hose, inside of this line, remove this piece, replace it. Same thing with my pressure gauge, but I don't want to do that today. So I am just going to simply turn this on, and as you can see here, I have nothing going through flow because I have this valve shut off. My pressure is a little bit more increased. So as soon as I turn that on, you'll see my GPM start to come up. You will see my pressure drop. All right, so now I will turn the pump on. All right, I have adequate leakage here. My 1 drip a minute roughly. It'll settle in. We're pumping, we're doing well. So, like I said, here I can regulate if I think I have too much flow, I have too many GPMs going through the system and into process. All I have to do is just utilize this valve right here. And all I have to do is slightly start to decrease it, and you'll see that needle start to drop. So that's a way for me to decrease the flow while maintaining the pressure, all right, into the stuffing box. So say I've flooded this thing, I've given it all the water that I can, and I can't seem to control that leak with where I've set my gland. This is another way to then control that leakage, but also maximize how much water you're putting into the system. But right here, now I know how many GPMs and at what pressure, and I've done my homework on my pump and my process to make sure that, again, I'm not that 1 bar, 15 PSI over process. And again, this is something that I will write down. I will record this, and in a week, 2 weeks, a month, I'll come back. I'll have these recorded, and I'll see any fluctuations. But again, this is integral in any type of maintaining your packing or PackRyt bearing. Please feel free to contact us with any questions or concerns or comments. Again, thank you for your time.